Welcome. This is a Center for Financial Wellness event with our friends from Sound Credit Union. And we have an expert panel today to talk about safeguarding your identity in a digital world. And today's panel, we have Michelle Maiorti, Risk Manager, Amber Warren, VP, Branch Manager, Janelle Borsa, Consumer Lending Manager, and our moderator is Jen Reed, VP of Public Relations. So welcome.
Thanks, Sally. Thanks, everybody. What a great turnout today. We appreciate you being here. Obviously, this is a hot topic, right? How many people in here have been impacted by identity theft at some point? I'm sorry that you have had to encounter that. You'll likely find out today that it's not a question of if it's happened to you, it's when it happens to you, because unfortunately, the fraudsters are getting more and more sophisticated at what they're doing. And as a financial institution, we are always trying to stay one, if not two steps ahead of them. But it takes a lot of work to make sure that we're protecting our members and our employees' identities that we work with. So always new tricks that our team's learning. So what we're going to talk about today is just trends that you're seeing out there and try to, our ultimate goal is to help you become empowered to protect yourself and your loved ones from having your identity stolen, and to protect you from that, because it is, for those who have been through it, and you may have heard us talk about this at previous presentations we've held here, what you go through when your identity is stolen is time-consuming, it's aggravating, and just it drains you. So if we can give you the tools to help protect you and your loved ones, then we're doing our job here. So we're going to talk about things like trends that we're seeing currently: account takeover, person-to-person, synthetic identity fraud, social engineering, check fraud, email compromise, loan and credit fraud, as well as crypto scams that are taking place. So, and those are just a few. The list goes on and on. I was just telling my team when we were outside last night, I heard something. They were talking about New York City and the amount of cyber fraud that's happening every week. And they said 80 billion situations are happening every week. And they reiterated that was with a beat. I was like, really? Wow, that's overwhelming. And so it's not just financial institutions, it's people are doing everything they can to get in front of the fraudsters who are out there. So taking that all into consideration, let's go ahead. We want this to be an open dialogue. So as we're going through and you have questions or comments, situations you've heard about, please feel free to raise your hand and share that. That's how we all become better at understanding what's going on. The more we talk about this, the more we can help one another, which is what it's all about. So we'll go ahead and start with Michelle. So Michelle is on our risk and compliance team and oversees all of it. She sees so much every single day and has a wealth of knowledge. So Michelle, thinking about common forms of identity theft scams that your team is seeing today, why don't we start there?
So identity theft, right? Like everybody has kind of heard about it. We see it. I think I even just saw like on the news the other day that they were really talking about some of the protections that you can put in place to try to safeguard your identity. What we're seeing mostly is check fraud, which is a little bit surprising because I've been in investigations, whether it's physical security or fraud, for like the last 22 years. And if you would have asked me about 20 years ago, if I would be sitting here today and saying that we're still seeing a large amount of check fraud, I probably would have said no way. Because that's, 20 years ago is right when we were seeing digital banking start to develop. We were seeing mobile banking, mobile deposits and things like that. And I really thought that would have just kind of taken over. But we are still seeing a lot of check fraud. We're seeing identity theft as it's associated with person-to-person payments. And then I think the third highest thing that we're seeing is regarding account takeover fraud with regard to online banking compromises. So that's where people are getting your online banking credentials and signing in as you, and then conducting any type of like transfers or withdrawals or things like that. Those are probably the biggest things that we're seeing with regard to identity theft. Identity theft is where somebody is using somebody else's information without their permission to commit a crime, fraud, in this case. There are multiple types of identity theft, but, the one we're going to talk about today is with financial gain. So as far as trends go, the last few years, there's been kind of a new one to develop. It's titled synthetic identity theft. I don't know if anybody's really heard about that, but it's just kind of a play off of regular identity theft, but it's where somebody's information, good piece of information like your name, your date of birth, or your social security number is stolen. And then the fraudster or the bad actor is taking fake information and combining it or blending with that good information. And then they use that to create a whole new identity. Then they use that to, open accounts, open lines of credit, get loans. And the issue with that's a little bit different than, so-called regular identity theft, is that it takes a little bit longer for those indicators to really start showing up. If my identity is stolen as a whole, I'm going to start seeing some things, some suspicious activity. I might get, communication from a credit bureau. I might get a call from collections. There are certain indications there that will tell me, hey, something's off. When it comes to synthetic identity theft, it takes longer because it's a whole separate identity. There will be some indications there, but they take longer for people to cue in on. So, they have a longer amount of time to build a credit profile. They start utilizing their bank accounts under that profile and start showing a history. And because of that, it's a little bit harder to track it. And, it takes a little bit longer for us to really figure out what's going on. If they're using good pieces of information, it gets through the systems a little bit easier. So that's really what's coming into play nowadays. It's just that combination. And it's really difficult for law enforcement. It's really difficult for those of us who are conducting those investigations to determine what is good, what is bad, what is stolen, because it's just a big mix. It just makes investigations a lot more complex.
Yeah.
I don't know who was first. We got some questions.
Okay. So I was made aware recently that my 16-year-old daughter's social security number is being used for a job in Moses Lake. I called Social Security and I wanted to make a report or whatever, and they told me it doesn't matter and to not worry about it.
Okay, that's interesting. I can't speak on behalf of Social Security Administration, but child identity theft is one of those top 4 categories of identity theft, along with financial identity theft. So what I would do in that case is I would start, is there a credit profile for her? Right?
I know she keeps getting an email for an Apple card wanting to know, so you could get this big credit limit on your Apple card. And I thought that was odd because her email's tied to my iPhone and she'd been getting that for a while. And then this thing happened with Social Security number. And I'm like, now, wait a minute. Something where's going on here?
Okay. Did they offer to flag it?
No.
With a fraud flag?
So,
okay. It might be something that you would want to look into. There are things that you can do with your Social Security number where you are flagging it with a fraud flag, or you can do like a credit freeze, and we can get into a little bit more about that. But you have to really weigh the pros and cons of some of that. Because she's young, it might be something that's worthwhile for those of us that are making purchases like homes and cars and things like that. Sometimes it can create issues just because it takes a little bit longer to process documentations and go through with your purchases. But honestly, it's just kind of something that you would have to weigh. But also, I'll give you some tips and resources too towards the end of things that you can look at to try to determine.
Early, but just...
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
Knowing that you're going to leave early, I would contact all 3 bureaus, and they're going to tell you that you're going to have to send a copy of her social security card and her birth certificate.
Potentially.
Yeah. Like physical copies.
Okay.
And when you do that, I would UPS it so that you have confirmation that it was received by them. but you're going to want to contact all of them. I say that as a mom of a kid that I was trying to get access to his to make sure nobody had opened anything in his. And then in order to do that, that's what I had to do.
Okay.
All right. So
Thank you so much.
yeah.
I was just wondering how well known synthetic fraud is. Like my partner, she kind of out opened at USAA, and then she called them, and they just acted very confused. Like she had opened the account, and she was like, "I had never opened this account. Like, what were you doing to fix this?" And we didn't get much like information about it, so she just closed all her credit line. But I was just curious, like how well known it is.
It seems to be, I don't know, I speak from the perspective of risk, right? So to me, it's something I deal with every single day. It is on the newer side of the trends, but I do think it's becoming pretty huge. They're expecting synthetic identity fraud to be one of the top issues for 2025, along with check fraud, which still just kind of blows my mind. But did she make a police report?
Yeah.
No, I mean, that's something you can do. And even sometimes that's difficult, right? Trying to determine which jurisdiction that you're supposed to make the report in. I would start with where you live, even if it's just a quick online report. I can't speak for them because I don't know what their process is, but maybe send them a letter of something formal to identify the fact that you feel that there was an account opened that's not correct. Ask for a response, and then maybe just go from there.
Good.
Thank you. Yeah. Also, though, I know I had said I would, talk about some tips or tricks later, but we'll just bring it up now. Some of the things you can do too, there are a couple of federal agencies that you can make reports through. And I know people think, oh, but if I'm making a report with a large federal agency, it's not going to go anywhere. It really does. They do document all of that. So IC3, which is it's a criminal complaint center for online activity. Also FTC.gov, Federal Trade Commission, they take all of those reports. I would file a report there as well. And then another, resource I think that is really good is the Attorney General's for the state of Washington. They have a lot of fraud resources there. So those are three things that I would definitely look at. Yeah.
So I was curious how prevalent for synthetic identity fraud is with senior citizens. I work to educate seniors that technology and scams are a big part of that. So I was just curious to hear about this.
The scams are a little bit separate, I think, from synthetic. Yes, they can all kind of combine and go hand in hand. But I think what we're seeing mostly with the senior, with seniors is more about investment, romance scams, being taken advantage. And that's one of the things, too, that we'll talk about is like social engineering. So we're seeing a lot of that. And we are seeing a lot of their funds going out the door. And so those types of scams. But believe it or not, they're saying that the age range from 20 to 29 is having a huge uptick in being, losing funds when it comes to fraud. It's a huge percentage of where they're seeing the fraud right now is that age range. I think a lot of it is job scams, social media. People are being contacted or they are trying to go out into the job market and they're applying for jobs. And a lot of these jobs aren't legitimate, unfortunately. And they'll get things in the mail like checks or whatever, and they'll take those and they'll go and deposit them into their account. Checks charged back as counterfeit or stolen. In between that, they were requested to send money back in the form of gift cards or cash or a wire. And then they're out the amount of funds that charged back to their account. And now, if they can't pay it, it's going to hit your credit. It's just like an ongoing thing, right? Another thing with that, too, is that once you have been a victim of fraud, the chances of you incurring that again is pretty high. So you'll be contacted over and over and over again. But we are seeing a huge amount of scams affecting our elderly. Usually it's investment or romance. They take advantage of the fact that seniors are lonely or they may not have a good understanding of how social media works. So it's kind of predatory, really.
What are some protections that you could take, especially to senior speaking?
It's really about awareness and just it's trying to get them to understand that they need to share the details of what's going on with people that they trust. And a lot of times we have, people don't like it when your financial institution starts asking questions. And it's really not about us trying to be invasive. As long as what you're doing is legal, I don't care how you spend your money, right? But if I feel like there's something off, and Amber can go into a little bit about that too, is they're going to start asking you some questions about what's going on. And they're being coached to lie. And I'm sure, Amber, you've seen that, right?
Yes.
Where they'll start telling us, oh, I'm having construction completed on the house. We're remodeling the bathroom. But then, the activity doesn't quite mesh with what they're saying. So we ask a few more questions. And they are adamant about not giving us information because that's what they're coached to do. And we've run into, sometimes they're embarrassed if they become a victim. And it's really, what I really want people to understand is that this transcends class, race, how much money you make. I've seen victims that are really well-known individuals in society. So it can happen to anyone. So I don't want people to be embarrassed about it. The sooner people can realize what's going on and ask for some assistance, we can help get them back on track and try to fix what had happened, to try to get their money back. That's the biggest thing. Wires are treated like cash. So as soon as they go out the door, it's really, really difficult to get that money back. But if somebody tells us, we will work really hard to try to get that money back. And we've had a pretty good track record with it. But it's because we identified it early.
So great questions. We've got a lot we want to cover. So let's move on to what else we have here. So thinking about earlier lending, and you were touching on that, Michelle. So Janelle, thinking about what you and your team are seeing regularly as consumer lenders, what do you see trends that are happening and emerging?
It's in the lending aspect, it's really focused on identity theft. They're typically online applications. It's the path of least resistant. These are non-members requesting a large unsecured personal loan. Typically, the request is for maybe home improvement or a vacation. The request is never towards like a credit card that we can compare to on their credit report. So it's typically a non-member requesting large unsecured money, and then they have a great credit score and they have a great job. And so typically you can bypass with the higher credit score, you can bypass that income verification and a lot of different things. So we have to really look at it and go, is this a normal practice for this type of individual? So we do look at how many inquiries have been on that credit report and when their trade lines have been established and if they've received any new trade lines within the past 90 days or so. New trade lines are a signal of identity theft. And if we do see any kind of signals relating to, is this the real person? We definitely reach out and we will request a copy of your ID or a pay stub. When we get those identifications, we look at them and we do verification on the driver's license, the pay stubs. A lot of times they're fake pay stubs, and frequently we're seeing really good fake IDs. And the driver's license numbers are real and the information on there is real. The picture is real. A lot of these profiles, these fraudsters are able to pull the information from public profiles. So they're usually professionals that have a public profile. And I had one a couple weeks ago, and she was a nurse practitioner. So her profile was online, her information. She had just recently purchased a house. So when you purchase a house, your information, your address is available to the public. So depending on how much information they can gather from one source, they can create a pay stub based off of your profile that you've created. They can go to Facebook or Instagram, any of these online accounts, and snag a picture of you. So like in this situation, we had her ID, and all the information on there was her information, but she had her driver's license. So they're using Adobe, they're using Photoshop, and they're getting really good at creating a fake ID and using it in place of somebody. So it's really important for us to do our due diligence when we're reviewing the applications and not just like pushing them through. If we have questions with the employment verification, we'll call that employer and ask them, do they actually work there? And we want to go 2 steps further, like we did a few weeks ago to this miss. We called her directly from the online profile that she worked. We just called, and I was able to leave a message on her voicemail. And I just said, hey, I received an application in your name. I just want to verify that it was you. She called me within 3 minutes. And she was like, that is not me. And then within an hour, she drove an hour and 20 minutes to our local branch, to one closest to her. She had a police report filed, and we were able to stop everything. We were able to inform her how to protect her credit, because once it happens to one person, it will happen. They don't just stop with us. They will go to 4 or 5 different institutions as fast as they can. And they go as quick as possible.
That's great information, Janelle. Thank you. So thinking about when they come into like a branch to work with you and your team, Amber, what are you doing to observe what's happening with members as they come in, things that you're seeing, just whether it's transactions that are taking place, and how do you communicate with them to know that they can trust you and your team, and that you're trying to protect them without having them become offended, like what Michelle was saying earlier?
I think that it's really important to let them know that it's okay to be vulnerable. I'm only here to help you. I have experienced this with many people. There's a lot of emotion that's behind it, especially if somebody's going through this and they're experiencing this firsthand, that they've had their identity taken from them. I know that can be very touchy. Oftentimes we'll give them to some kind of a branch leadership or somebody that's a little seniored and understanding and being able to help navigate that. We look for certain things when it comes to, how it's happened or what's happening, what exactly is happening. What was built for you. I mean, it is typically their information that's happened. And if it's happening to somebody that's already has an existing membership, and now that their online banking has been taken over, just sharing that and being able to look in and use the tools that we have and the resources that we have. And when was the last time that you logged in, and looking at their history, or they're coming in for a large withdrawal within my branch, but they just visited another branch 2 hours ago to do a large withdrawal. So looking at that transaction history and asking all the questions. There is a lot of, people do often get tight-lipped because they are being guided on what to say or how the whole story. They have a whole story before they come in. And so, finding out exactly how do you know this person? I'm only asking these questions to help protect you and sharing that. And it's okay that if you don't want to share with me, but then maybe opening the door and finding a different way and asking a different question, trying to get that information. So
how are you all handling it, like from a training and knowledge perspective? How do you, if Michelle's hearing things in the risk area, how are you ensuring that other employees within the financial institution are aware of the trends that you're seeing? If it's a new uptick, how are you all working together on that?
Michelle's team actually puts out something to us often and lets us know what the common things are, what the things that everybody's seeing. And that goes out to the entire credit union to be able to see. And it's interesting. And so it grabs your attention, and it's like you want to read it. So everybody, there's many teams. Everybody's reading it. It's great information. There's that. We go through annual training that we do. We share with one another what is happening. We have tools that help us to navigate these certain scenarios, because we want to make sure that when this individual leaves, we've gathered everything that we need to gather. There's nothing worse than having to call somebody and have them come back because we forgot to have them sign some kind of form, or we didn't give them the proper information to the credit bureaus for them to be able to freeze credit. Or they asked how they could file something, and we're like, oh my gosh, I totally spaced on that website. So we're all working together as a team. You always want to keep your ears on, and then sharing those stories within the credit union. That is incredibly beneficial.
Yeah, I second that, Amber. I work with my back office, so my team isn't really focused in the branch with our members. So we get it firsthand. We look at everything coming in online, and we review it and we share it. We collaborate every single day. There is nobody keeping information from anybody. And then we work together, and then my team works with our branches. Our branches have like monthly huddles and meetings and different things. And so there's branch managers that will ask, hey, I wanted to focus on fraud. And so we will then pull a bunch of stuff that we've had, a bunch of fake pay stubs and driver's license, and we'll share the information and say, and hey, which one is fake? Which one is real? And so really, it's really getting your eyes on the documents to understand what is real. If we just pick something up and take it from you and just bypass it into the system, we're not doing our due diligence, and we're not doing you a benefit being a member of the credit union.
There's so many times where I've sent stuff to Janelle's team or Michelle's team because I've got question about whatever it may be. They're the ones that see these things every single day. I maybe see 100 a month and they see 1,000, right? And so it's like something as simple as an address verification document. I don't necessarily have TPU anymore. I used 2 years ago. I don't know what a TPU statement looks like. I only do because I work in a community that uses TPU. But there's been many different things.
TPU, Tacoma Public Utilities, in case anybody's wondering. That's great. Thank you both for sharing that. So,
I have a question. I'm really thankful to financial institutions that actually keep their eyes on this, because right now, my credit card is on freeze right now, because yesterday I got something from my credit card company saying that there was an unauthorized charge, and I looked at it. And the vendor that it was is actually somebody who I would use. But for some reason it got flagged. So I'm just like really amazed how they flagged that, because it wasn't me. It's like, oh, my credit card's on freeze right now, which I can get a replacement car. But it seems like us as a consumer, it seems like I feel like I didn't really do anything. Could I have done something differently? I mean, is there anything that I could do? I just don't know. Yeah.
I would say in that situation, you're getting notification. You really want to pay attention to how it's being delivered to you and the source behind it, right? And not to click on those links. So if somebody's sending you a text message, I think I got a text message 4 different times on Easter saying that my card was used at all these different merchants for over $400, $500. And I knew right away that it was fraudulent just because I'm that much into it. But that doesn't mean a normal consumer is going to know that. And the likelihood that you would click on that link and then you're telling them who you are and giving them more information about you, that's the start of identity theft right there. And so one of the things I can't stress enough is to reach out to your credit card company, your financial institution directly. Don't call the number that's on the voicemail or on the text message. Call them directly or stop by and say, hey, I received a call. Because if you've received something from us, we will have that data and we'll be able to support you in branch or however we need to do that.
Well, and how many of you recently filled out the FAFSA, right, for next year? Anybody fill that out? I am getting notifications for my son telling him that he hasn't got his number for his FAFSA yet. I'm all, that's not accurate. But somehow they know he's going to be leaving for college and they're trying to get me to click, and I'm not going to touch on that. I'm not touching that link. So I think that's a good one to go into. Michelle, thinking about all the phishing and text scams that are out there. And you said it earlier, students that are this age, people who are this age we're seeing a huge increase in it. How can we as consumers protect ourselves from just like Janelle said, not clicking on those things, but what should we watch out for?
I think a lot of it is, social engineering is basically psychological manipulation. They're attempting to trick you into providing that. Mm-hmm. So one thing you can do is slow down. We're super fast paced. We don't always focus 100% on what we're doing at any given time. So slow down. And like Janelle had stated, the text message or the email that comes through has the appearance of being a legitimate source. But if you really look at the URL, it comes back to some weird characters, right? Like it's not coded as that legitimate source. And we've seen a lot where the platform looks good, but if you actually dig a little bit deeper, that's not actually where it's going. Same with when you're using internet search engines. You need to sometimes go down a few to actually get the real site for what you're searching for, because they have that promotion one that's up at the top. A lot of times we've seen that that's not legit. So you think you're clicking on the actual site that you were searching for, but you're not. A couple of other things that you can really do is monitor your accounts, right? On a regular basis. Monitor your spending, your credit charges, all of that. Because if you're not looking at that, that's a problem. And they're going to take advantage of that. Other things really is, your annual credit report.
Yes.
Pull that on at least an annual basis.
Do it every week.
Yeah. I mean, if not more, take a look at that. Make sure that everything looks good there. Any of your emails that you're getting, email compromise is huge. So make sure that, again, if you're replying to the email, that it's legitimate. If they're asking for additional information, stop. How many times have we gotten them from like FedEx or UPS, right? And they're like, we can't deliver to your address.
Yeah.
Please enter. A lot of those aren't good, right? So you just have to do that extra to stop and take a look and do some review. If you have questions or you suspect that there's suspicious activity, go into your financial institution. They are a resource for you. And there's a lot online as well. Yeah.
Do you think AI is affecting any of the scams like up to?
Sure. I mean, there's a lot of pros and cons to that, right? I mean, can we use them to our benefit as well, trying to detect it? Yeah, but could they be up behind it? Sure. I guess we'll be finding out, right?
Yeah.
One of the things I say is like, if something's too good to be true, don't click on it. Many of us have social platforms where we say, oh, wow, all of our ads are designed for what we've talked about, what we've looked up, and what we have in general. And so, if I'm talking about something, all of a sudden I see an ad for this and it's $60, $70 less than it normally would, it's typically a fake site trying to get me to click on it. So just really pay attention to those. The other big one is toll bridges. That's a big one where it's like you have a $3 outstanding charge. If you don't pay this right now, we're charging you $67 late fee.
And then you're going to get it.
Yeah, and then you're arrested, those are the things we're asking you to slow down and pay attention to. Just because you've got something doesn't mean you've got to click on it and move like fire. You don't have to do that. Slow down and go to your actual resource, because the Good to Go does have a resource site and you want to go directly to that. If we have Good to Go and you have an unpaid till bill, it's going to be under your car registration. They're never going to come to you via a text message.
And be careful what you're sharing online, because I think we've touched upon that a bunch, but I mean, that's how people get your information, right?
Yep.
So
yeah, don't put your work information on like Facebook, Instagram, anything like that. LinkedIn is fine, but like seriously, don't put that on there. Yes.
How are banks dealing with crypto scams and blockage and for identity? And how are customers retrieving their money back if they can retrieve their
Yeah.
money back?
It's difficult.
Mm-hmm.
It really is difficult. Crypto in and of itself isn't fraud, right? It's the platforms that the fraudsters are building to look like a legitimate crypto platform, and then using, some sort of social engineering to get people to invest and utilize that platform. The issue too is there's a lot of crypto ATMs where people are depositing their money into and they think they're investing it. And we're seeing a lot of that, and it's really, really difficult to get money back.
Yeah. We've had that happen with one of our colleagues, their mother, speaking of the elderly and being taken advantage of. She was getting a text message telling her that she needed to go get $5,000 out of her account, and she needed to drive down to the gas station in Fife where there's a crypto machine and deposit the money. And she did it. And once it was gone, it was gone. And then the person kept texting us saying, I need you to do it again. And that's when she was sort of on alert, and she was hesitant to tell her own daughter, who we work with. And her daughter's like, Mom, this is a scam. This isn't real. And then the daughter started texting with them. And it was just terrible. And she was so embarrassed to tell her daughter and son-in-law, who both work for financial institutions, what had happened to her. But this is real. And then once that crypto money, once the money is given to the crypto, it's gone. And it's the same thing with wires, right? It's hard to get that back. So being alert is huge. So great talk. Okay, so thinking about how many people are applying for loans online versus coming into the branches. Amber, I mean, there's plenty of people who still come in to a branch to open an account for a loan or anything like that. But Janelle, a lot are going online and working with your team. What are you seeing that way?
I would say a majority of our apps are received online. It's just convenient, right? It's the easy way to do it. There's nothing wrong with putting an application online, but it's definitely going to be keyed a little bit differently because we're not face to face. We don't see them. So we're definitely, if we're going to review every aspect, there is no easy application. It doesn't matter what your credit score is or what your income is. There is no easy application when it comes to online. They all have to be reviewed and used your due diligence. If we see something that we don't like, we will question it and we will ask for a pay stub. If we don't like the pay stub, I will ask for a bank statement showing the deposit the deposit that's on the pay stub I received, or I'll ask for additional 30-day pay stubs to review. Typically, I'm going to get ghosted because they are like, oh wait, they're on to me. So I'm going to get ghosted and then we just never hear about it again. We as a financial institution, we tend to deny the application immediately. When we deny the application and when we deny an application, it will automatically send an adverse action to the applicant. So it's going to mail them a document telling them that, hey, you applied for a loan. Unfortunately, we couldn't approve this loan. Here's the reasons why. Now, if it's really you and you've got a great credit score and you need that loan, you're going to call us up and you're going to be like, I don't understand this. A lot of times we say, please come into the branch. Please see a representative of a branch. And then if it's really them, they're going to come right in. Nine and a half times out of 10, they're not coming in and it's fraudulent. But what we've done by declining the loan immediately is we're alerting the actual real person. And so we're alerting them that there's an application in their name, and then they're getting that. And then they're immediately coming in or calling us and saying, I got a notice, I didn't apply. And so we're able to get a hold of it before it's too late and before the damage has been really bad. Because like I said, when there's one application, there's going to be 4 or 5 more. So it's really helpful for us to decline it rather than just sit on it and wait for those documents to come back if they were ever to come back.
And every financial institution is different in how they look at applications that are coming through. And Janelle, you speaking about what you just were going over makes me think of a recent conversation we had where you had somebody applying for a loan who'd recently received loans from multiple financial institutions. Can you tell everybody about that situation, what your team was able to catch and stop before it went further?
Absolutely. So we received an online application and it was for an RV loan. And RV loans are a little bit different than an auto loan because it's a toy in our mind, right? It's not something that we need to get back and forth to work. The necessity is not there. So you have to have really established credit in order to actually get that approval process completed. So we were reviewing the application and it was a really good credit profile and it ended up being approved and the application was then sent out to one of our local branches they requested to sign at. And then they went out there, the loan officer was reviewing all that data and prepping to open the account and had a signing for that applicant to come in and actually pick up the check for an RV loan. And when they were opening the account, we do an additional soft pull. It's just another a verification. It doesn't hurt your credit or anything, but it's a soft pull to verify the identity of that person's account being opened. And that loan officer did their due diligence and reviewed the soft pull information and compared it to the information from the application we had from probably 20 days prior to that. And she just it didn't sit well with her. She was really uneasy about it. So she reached back out to our underwriters and said, can you look at this? On this soft pull I've seen, they have, I think there was 22 inquiries. And prior to the application, prior to 30 days before, there was none or 2. I don't want to quote, but there was very minimal. So it was really outside that normal practice. And so our underwriters looked at it and they said, oh, no. This is literally fraudulent information. So we are able to repoll the credit again. So we actually repolled the credit again on that applicant. And we saw numerous trade lines now reporting to the credit bureau and all those inquiries. And so we were able to like stop that application from funding out to that member. So it's not just happening with unsecured loans. It is now trending towards auto loans and personal loans, or auto loans and RV loans and whatnot. It's just not your typical unsecured cash. There's no free cars.
Amber, what red flags and behavior patterns are you and your team seeing in a branch when people come in?
Awesome.
So it's kind of been consistent where people come in with checks, of course, that they've received, that are around the same-ish dollar amount. They're kind of around $4,500 usually. And they're depositing this check into their already established account and then being instructed to take the funds out. Now, it's our training and everything that we've experienced in the branch to look at that check, review that check, and decide whether or not we're going to place a hold on that check, make it an immediate available kind of thing. So oftentimes those transactions will take a little bit longer, and sometimes you're getting the rush, but it's okay to take time when you're protecting somebody. And so seeing stuff like that come through, that's pretty often. And then the request for cash. And it's usually large dollar amounts of cash that people are wanting to withdraw. And those always get questioned anyways, because when you're coming in to do a large withdrawal, the teller that you're going to isn't necessarily prepared for that. And so it takes a couple people to be involved with that, because now they need to purchase the money or whatever, or prepare it for the future, whatever it may be, depending on the amount. And so typically that's bringing up questions. What are we doing the withdrawal for? There are many people that remodel their home. Remodeling your home is definitely a big one. Another one is, well, it's none of your business. It's my money. Another one, I'm going to buy a vehicle. And then what kind of vehicle are you going to buy? We just recently had somebody who was pulling a very large sum of money out, and she was going to purchase a vehicle, and there's no reason why I could ever picture this. We know her very well. Ever picture her driving in a new Tesla. And so then, who's going to drive the Tesla? She is aging. She said that her sister was going to be driving the Tesla. She was the one that was taking her to and from her appointments. Her sister is on the account, was not available. What kind of Tesla are you going to get? She was being coached through the entire thing to be able to take the funds out. And in this instance, it really broke my heart. She took the funds out. She did have somebody on the phone with her the entire time. She was in the branch, and she drove alone to go meet this individual and hand them money. And then later on that night, then shared with her sister and her sister's husband what had happened, and was very ashamed and about everything that had happened, and came back in, called immediately next day, came back in and shared a little bit about what was going on. And that was a hard one to deal with, because when you're taking cash out and you're doing that, but then you're also putting yourself into a dangerous situation. And I think that's really what triggered her mind to say that happened and that was wrong. But these are things that, unfortunately, they're not uncommon. We see them, and that's why we're asking these probing questions. That's why financial institutions, can't speak for all of them, they may have you sign something when you withdraw a large sum of cash. It's okay to be vulnerable with the person that's dealing with your finances. There's a lot of people that come in and they just share their whole life with you, and that's fine. I love that. I'll share some of mine as well, because I just love people. But the asking of the questions and the wanting to know more, it's good to know you anyways. Like, how'd that kitchen remodel go? So
and like the person Amber's talking about, she sees regularly. And coming in, think about it, a Tesla, probably $70,000, $80,000 that woman took out of her account. And again, once it's out of her hands, whether it's into a crypto machine or into a criminal's hands, there's nothing we can do to protect her. So all of her hard-earned dollars are gone. So if there's anything we can do here today to help you understand, like, these people are taking advantage of people who are your age, my age, those that are my parents, grandparents, all of that. It's happening every day. So share these stories. Make sure people are aware. The more we can help protect them and get them to understand. I mean, my son jokes all the time. If I see something on social and I question it, like, even if it's just a baseball team and it's a meme, and he's like, you just got grandma. I said, that's not real. It's like, you sell for it. You have to be better at that. I mean, I'm even used to that, but we were talking about it earlier. It was Christmas time 2 years ago, and there was a Burton sale that was on sale, or that was going on for the holidays. And my son sent me the link to it and said, Mom, it's 70% off until Sunday. He goes, you can get a screaming deal for me for snowboarding boots. And I looked at it. And again, we work with this all the time. Everything looked legitimate. I found the boots he wanted. I ordered them. They were going to be there before his birthday. It's the December baby. And I was great. So then all of a sudden it was like December 10th. And I said to my husband, I'm like, where are those boots? They haven't come in yet. And I went and looked, and I realized I had no receipt from Burton. And so then I Googled I searched in my email, I searched the amount. All of a sudden I found a PayPal email that had gone to my spam. And that was what it was. Well, I ended up contacting Burton and said, are you hearing about this scam? Because this is what happened. And the sales representative was not familiar with it. And he said, I talked to my IT team. Can you send me that link that you received? I sent it to him, but when he got it, it took him from the Burton site to Amazon. And it was a totally different site because they're so sophisticated that they weren't going to let somebody from Burton see what it was. Like, I mean, it's crazy. It was the exact same link, but somehow by the time it had gotten to him, and I would click on it and it took me to the same one. But by getting to Burton, it wouldn't work right. So it's crazy. They're really sophisticated. So well, what other questions do you all have? We've talked a lot. Hopefully this has been helpful. Yes.
So it seemed that like social engineering has been improving to try to hack and steal. So what is being done on like the other end to protect against that in the future?
Can I speak to that? So I think that it's really important for you yourself to be able to take control of your finances in your life, in your world, making sure that you're checking credit regularly, but maybe also freezing for credit or putting consumer statements on credit. Another thing that you can do is with the accounts that you have, because on average, people have more than 10 accounts across their whole life. Taking the accounts that you have and adding some kind of password to them, whether that be a verbal password or maybe a tool that company offers. So like Sound Credit Union, for example, offers something called Member Pass. Excuse me. And so Member Pass is something that when you call, I can go into the account, do a little drop down thing, and it'll send you a code. And with that code, now you've given me that verbal confirmation. I know that that's you. So looking at the tools that they have to offer for something like that, because it is easy, it is accessible to these fraudsters or impersonators, whomever, to gather this information and to be able to call and spit that information out seamlessly and try to transact these things over the phone. And then there's safeguarding in place with financial institutions. You can't necessarily transfer a large amount of money over the phone. You do need to be in person. You're not able to wire things over the phone. There are transactions that would need to happen in person. There's Visa or MasterCard that umbrellas are credit cards or debit cards, and they have their fraud protection that they may call you with as well. And then there's limits that are on these things. Your debit card has a limit for the ATM, and each ATM has a limit. There's limits that are in place to help try to protect that. And so those are just things that you can do to protect yourself.
And don't use your debit cards online. Amber hears me say, my mom needs to talk to you again because she used her debit card online again. If they get your debit card online, it's your cash that they're going to get. They're going to take your cash. If they get your credit card, you're going to get, most likely they'll be able to refund you that money. But if it's cash, it's gone. So if you have to pay your rent or your mortgage or your auto loan or whatever it is, and that cash is gone and it's going to take 2 to 3 weeks to get the money back in your account, you're going to be out of luck. So I had recommend not using, I got mad at my son yesterday and I need to get him his own credit card so he can use it online. So if I see he bought another thing on TikTok with his debit card, heads are going to roll.
I would also add to change your password on a regular basis, and don't use the same password and the same username for multiple accounts. A lot of that stuff, can be bought and sold. And if they have access to it and you've got it crossed multiple accounts, then they have access to all of it. So passphrases are better than passwords. So that's just another thing to try to keep.
Yeah, we're seeing more and more takeovers with companies constantly, right?
We are. And some of the takeovers, a lot of them, they're coming like it could be your financial institution calling you. We're never going to ask you for your online password to get into your online account. And that is something that happens regularly. We can get into it. We have the software that's allowing us already to offer it to you. So therefore, we don't need what your password is. Never give your password to anyone. Nobody ever needs it.
And they call you and ask for your last four of your social security or your debit card or whatever. Do not give that out. Do not. Like, I've had people call and they're like, well, your last four of your social security is what I need. I'm like, tell me what you need. I'm not giving you my social security. Not happening. You can tell me who I need to call, but I'm not going to give you that.
Yeah. Usually it's a click. Yep. At that moment.
Yeah.
So while I very much appreciate all the defenses set up, there's always that one weekend where, the dog decides to attack a porcupine and the car explodes. And you need all these things. So is the best way to make sure that it's a legitimate emergency, just bring pictures and go like, see, that actually happened, please. So, or
I'm confused.
I'm paranoid that in a legitimate emergency, I maybe done that. So,
I see. So if you needed credit.
Know your institution. What I always say is we're a credit union. When you're a member of the credit union, you own a piece of that, a share of the credit union. So we're there to protect you, right? And we know our members. I've been with the credit union for 25 years now, and I know so many members. Same with Amber. She knows her people right from left. She knows her grandparents. She knows that. So if you have a relationship with your financial institution, you're not going to have a problem in that moment. You're really not.
Yeah, truly. Our job is to understand what's going on in our members' lives. We need to know how we can best serve you. And so I would definitely say, some people don't want to build a relationship with them. That's true. Okay. But if you do, we want to help you and get you access to the funding you need to set pies.
Well, we're at time, so feel free to stick around if you have questions. We have the room for at least 2 hours.
Thank you for your time, everybody. This was wonderful. Great questions and interactions.
Thank you.